Well, I think the one thing we saw last week is we kind of got our first taste of a little bit of it was our first start to a game where we didn't, we weren't able to go down the field and score on our first possession, and we had actually scored first possession of each half going into that game. So we had felt really good about not only our, kind of how we wanted to start games, but then our adjustments at halftime to go be successful in the second half. Tampa came out and had a lot of energy and emotion on that side of the ball to start the game, and we kind of had to respond. Defense did a great job kind of getting us the ball back, and we were able to kind of on that third drive get it going and go down there and score. But just another example of his steadiness through that. It really wasn't, we missed a couple things. He missed a couple things early, and then his ability to just move on to the next play, get our offense right back where we wanted to get to, and kind of score on the next four possessions was really big.
I asked Matthew about this, but some of the nonverbal stuff, some of the things that he's checking into
Yep.
alongside receivers who are signaling certain things to him. What's that been like, that process coming together? What have you seen in that regard?
Well, it's just, it's a real organic process where you're sitting in the meeting rooms with the guys and could even be out on the field in between periods, and there's just discussion. And the best times for those signals and those nonverbal sometimes that come to life is when it's player driven. We can sit around and probably too much as coaches, we sit around thinking about names of things or signals for things, and then you present them to the players and they're like, no, we don't like that, we'd rather do this. And you're like, okay, I could have got that hour back of my life that we spent thinking about that stuff. But these guys are so, unique from a standpoint of their, elite communication amongst one another, but also with us. So a lot of times it's giving them the freedom and the ownership of it, and then you just see it take off from there.
Kevin, to that point, a lot of coaches around the league are saying week 4 is kind of where the communication is going to settle in and get the market correct and team's identity. Do you think you guys have kind of accelerated that curve, or do you think you guys are still kind of approaching that kind of?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'd like to think it's kind of both, to be honest with you, where we knew kind of going into, we spent a lot of time in training camp and a lot of time since Matthew really got here of trying to build things so that, that ownership of the line of scrimmage could be something he could feel really good about while also operating in the confines of a lot of the, the ways we want to just, apply pressure to the defense. So it's a lot from that standpoint, but at the same time we see opportunities with a lot of phases of our offense to apply that as well moving forward. So I think it's a great point, and I think it's something that we got to always look at. Obviously, from a self-scout standpoint, what we've put on tape, what we've done, but also, unique opportunities that could be there moving forward.
Is the Arizona defense equipped to put more pressure on Matthew than the first three?
I mean, I can remember talking to you about that Tampa front last week, and really every week we've played an opponent really sound defensively. They're playing really, really hard. They're flying around. It's not a mistake that they're 3-0. Playing really well in all three phases, but defensively, speed at all three levels. I mean, obviously, Chandler Jones and the production he's had. J.J. Watt, is a Hall of Fame player that's had unbelievable production and is playing well in the scheme that they have him in now. They've got a bunch of guys you can name that maybe aren't household names but are playing at a really high level. When you turn on the tape, it jumps off the film at you. And then on the back end, linebackers, just speed shows up. So from a pressure standpoint, coverage standpoint, how they want to defend us, we really got to do a good job of identifying, not only who's in the game, but then how they're attacking us and be ready to make some adjustments.
When you look at that game 1 of Chandler, 5 sacks in the season's pretty good.
Yeah.
Season. What did you see there?
Well, you just see he's got incredible length, obviously off the edge to kind of control the guy trying to attempt to block him. A lot of teams are doing some things to try to counter move him at the line of scrimmage or maybe help out, protection, send the slides his way. That's all great and all, but you still got to figure out a way to block him, no matter how many offensive linemen you can send his way. And if you do too much from that standpoint, they've got other guys that can get one-on-ones and attack you. So I think he's just, he's keeping the O-line off balance. He's got incredible speed to power, where he can kind of set moves up and then swipe a hander, knock a guy's first initial punch down, and then they're on skates from there, and basically the down's over. So unbelievable amount of initial skill sets from a pass rusher standpoint, but the counter moves with his length, his power, his speed, it makes him a real problem.
Kevin, in the offensive staff, how challenging is it for you guys to kind of keep everybody happy when you have so many guys capable of making plays and only so many footballs to go around?
Yeah, we teach things as all eligibles can come to life at any time, and really it's coverage driven, matchup driven, how people want to defend us. How the pocket allowing Matthew to kind of get through progressions and find his third, fourth, or fifth option on a play. A lot of that goes into that. We've got such unique guys and smart guys that they can turn on the tape and understand how the play was presented to them from an install standpoint, and then hey, this is how it played out on the field, and this is what we got to. So guys understand that, but it's fun. I mean, you can really get creative with formations, try to move people around, take advantage of what guys do well, and at the end of the day, they're going out and executing it, and Matthew's really driving it to make it all come to life.
Given all the weapons that Stafford has to throw to, why is it Cooper Kupp who's stood out so much so far?
Yeah, I think from a standpoint of there's a great chemistry there. I mean, Matthew really feels great about our whole group of skill guys, from our receivers, tight ends, backs. The communication that goes on throughout the week. But I think Cooper's got an elite ability to kind of see the game through the eyes of the quarterback, and they're operating at a really high level together. There's been some different plays where maybe it doesn't play out exactly like you scripted or you put on a card in practice for them. But when it comes to life on the field, those guys can make it work and make it right, and adjust on the fly with incredible football IQ. And Cooper, I mean, that's been from the jump, from when I got here. I've just been so impressed with his ability to see the game in real time and be able to adjust based upon some real high-level ball. And it holds up, snap in and snap out for him.
Kevin,
Couple more, guys.
not just like showing the empty sets, not just running the empty sets, but the production you guys are getting out of empty.
Yeah.
What does that do? First of all, what does that tell you about a defense when you align that way? And then second of all, does that how does that expand your menu of plays when you're not just showing it but running it effectively?
Yeah, I think it's empty's great as long as you're trying to distribute the field, distribute different people to different areas of the field for particular reasons. Don't really want to get into all those specifics, but we're not doing anything without a purpose. But at the same time, it's easy to sit there and say, hey, we're going to go empty and attack people. Well, they play defense too, and there's some things they can do to apply pressure to us, literal pressure from a blitz standpoint, as well as coverage things, dropping extra people into coverage. So you got to play the game both ways, and you got to have answers not only built in, but then your quarterback's got to have the ability to do some things at the line of scrimmage to reset the odds in our favor based upon the look that we're getting. But we like it. We like it's just a phase of our offense where we feel like we can allow Matthew to play the position. But once again, you can't talk about that without talking about the offensive line, because those guys are having to block some really, really good pass rushers. And you'd like to say you're getting the ball out quick, but there's some times we're holding things to try to let it develop. And those guys, you can't say enough about the job they've done through the first 3 weeks. It's been awesome.
Yeah, and that was the second part of my question. So how do the linemen's roles change in that regard? Is it like they're more maybe facing more blitz pressure, or what's the counter that they have to then focus in on at that point?
Yeah, it's a lot of times it's winning your one-on-one matchups, and we could do a lot of things from a scheme standpoint to try to help certain areas. But at the end of the day, defensively, these coaches in this league, they know how to attack protections and isolate people. And I can think back to last week a couple times, like even Brian Allen in the middle, isolated alone on some really good interior pass rushers, and him holding up, stout, strong, and allowing us to have that pocket set for Matthew to operate within. And obviously Witt and Rob on the edges, that's huge, because if you want to stretch the field laterally and really attack people sideline to sideline, you got to be able to set an edge so that you can look sideline to sideline. Otherwise, everything's got to be right in front of you, and you got to be thinking getting the ball out. Matthew feels so comfortable right now because of the protection he's got, and I'm sure Arizona's looking at that and saying, hey, we got to get pressure on this guy, especially when they're in empty, and that's kind of the game within the game.